This is ESG Decoded, the podcast powered by Global Affairs Associates to provide relevant, actionable updates related to business innovation and sustainability. Join Kaitlyn Allen and Amanda Shea of Global Affairs Associates for thoughtful, nuanced conversations with industry leaders that explore the complexities, the risks, and the opportunities connected to all things ESG. I'm Yvonne Harris, a consultant and co-host, and I will be collaborating with Kaitlyn and Amanda for the discussions that we will present on this podcast. Put simply, ESG is everything that is not on your balance sheet. This leaves room for misunderstanding, oversimplification, and the tendency towards one-size-fits-all perspectives. None of that will happen on this podcast. Enjoy this episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to ESG Decoded. I'm your host, Kaitlyn Allen, and today I have with me Jason Roe, CEO of EcoVapor Recovery Systems. I am super excited to have Jason on. We've been working together on some ESG items, and they have a really interesting technology. So let me begin with Jason's bio. Jason has more than 18 years of experience in the energy industry, ranging from upstream exploration and production, oilfield services and technology, to investment management and venture capital. Prior to joining EcoVapor, Jason was CEO of Avitas, a Baker Hughes venture, focused on emissions monitoring and detection strategies enabled through robotics, AI, and digital techniques. Before that, he served as president and CEO of XACT. Prior to XACT, he was a principal at Kenda Capital, a venture capital fund focused on energy technology. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, first, I want to start by asking about EcoVapor, the name. So when, EIV Capital reached out, so EIV Capital is EcoVapor's investment firm, telling me about their portfolio company, EcoVapor, I was thinking to myself, oh gosh, EIV is getting into the marijuana business.
Yeah, you're not the first one that's asked us about that. And of course, with our headquarters being in Denver, Colorado, it's easy to jump to that assumption, but and every once in a while we get some interesting samples sent to the office for people that think we're in the vaping business. But no, clearly that is not the business that we are in. But we get that question pretty frequently.
Okay, so if that's not the business you're in, it has been clarified. What is the business you're in, Jason?
Yeah, so the business we are in, really, we provide solutions that eliminate natural gas flaring and venting. So really the focus of our operations are for, starting with kind of the problem statement that we're really looking to solve is, our industry, of course, is working hard to reduce our emissions, and so with that, if you look at the emissions profile of the upstream industry, 80% of those emissions tend to come from the production process. And within that production process, you've got 60% of those emissions, which we would call waste emissions. And by waste, I mean, flaring, venting, fugitive emissions. And so really the thesis and what we are all about at EcoVapor is the elimination of this waste. And so, we like to focus on, why are we flaring gas when we can sell gas? And why are we emitting what we can put into a pipeline? And so really what we do is we help with the capture of tank vapors and the purification and treatment of these gas streams so that we can put that right back into the pipeline and make sure that people aren't flaring or combusting some of these, this valuable energy source that we all work so hard to produce. So really it's about gas treatment, but, we're also, working to focus on some different verticals as well. We recently, received our first orders into the renewable natural gas market as well, and we're excited about that. But yeah, the core of who we are, it's all about emissions reduction and maximizing production with easy to implement solutions.
That's pretty cool, Jason. So you guys are obviously, we all know flaring is a huge issue, and that from a climate standpoint as well, right? It's just all those emissions going into the air, particularly methane, because has a much higher impact on the environment in the short term. So everyone, I think, agrees with the need to reduce flaring, and EcoVapor seems to be one of the real leaders out there providing a solution. But I have heard people say, rightly or wrongly, right, that we don't necessarily have the technology to totally eliminate flaring. Do you agree with that or disagree?
But I don't think that you can make just a complete blanket statement, but I can tell you that there are solutions that exist. And so, I think the first place you have to start with is, what are the causes and what, makes us routinely flare or hopefully not, but vent gas. And so there's a variety of things that can cause this. So one is the complete lack of takeaway capacity. And so, not having takeaway capacity is probably, one of the larger reasons that someone may have to flare or vent some of their associated gas or their tank vapors. But outside of that, there's also a variety of reasons that people may be flaring, and it could be to contamination in their gas streams. If you have H2S or high oxygen content in that gas, and a lot of time the midstream providers may not accept that gas because it can be damaging to their infrastructure. And so, with that in mind, there's a variety of ways that these contaminants can get into the stream, whether it's from the reservoir itself or from the operations, open hatches, truck loading. Typically a lot of these contaminants can get in a variety of fashions. And ultimately, a lot of the existing solutions today, might only capture a portion of those vapor streams. But with us, you can capture 100% of that vapor stream. And so, there are a variety of technologies out there that are looking to solve some of these problems, even some for stranded gas. You see some of the people that are out there now looking at taking some of this gas and applying it to Bitcoin mining or something else. But then if you look at a solution like ours is, once again, it's all about the elimination of waste. And so, if people are, flaring these vapor streams that are coming from their tanks, which is some of the highest BTU gas out there, one thing we're extremely proud about is not just that we are having a massive impact on the emissions profile from a site, but the economics are fantastic. If you can imagine that you're selling gas that you otherwise are wasting or flaring, then the return on these associated gas streams could be very, very high with our equipment. So, I don't think we could just blanket say there's a solution for every single situation that is out there, but I can tell you that there are absolutely emerging solutions. Ours is one, and not only is it as a solution just from the emission standpoint, but it's also economic. So, there's certainly a lot of solutions out there in the market today that can help.
And I'm wondering too about going back to what you mentioned about your new renewable natural gas initiative. I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I don't know how much you've been involved or aware with some of these new renewable natural gas sources, things like landfill gas or, dairy farms or swine farms, where they're actually collecting this gas, from kind of the manure stream out there, and they're actually capturing this gas to where it can be, sold into the market. And, what's interesting about it is it's truly a carbon negative source. When you think about it, because from a variety of angles, one, you are taking what is otherwise emitted, a methane source that's being emitted naturally and capturing that. So that's one, but then also it's offsetting some of the other more carbon intensive energy sources. So it's truly a carbon negative source. And so you've seen a lot of people trying to spend more time here, and there's some incentives to do so that come from a variety of credits that are out there in the market. And so, but with these gas streams, there's a need to treat and purify, whether it be an H2S stream, whether it be oxygen, all so that we can ultimately sell this gas and make sure that this gas is pipeline and energy ready. And so it's been super interesting to, one, get to know this business a little bit, because it's certainly a business that I wasn't too aware of until my previous role as well, where we were doing some monitoring of some swine lagoons that were generating energy. But it's certainly an interesting business, and one that I think is getting a lot of interest and a lot of focus, because it truly is a carbon negative energy source. So I've been pleased to kind of get up the learning curve there a little bit, but at the same time we still have a long ways to go. So it's been a good journey, and we're just happy we can play a role.
What exactly are you guys going to be doing in that space? Are you guys going to be moving beyond the oil field to dairy farms or landfills?
Well, so our bread and butter is oil and gas. We came up and cut our teeth in oil and gas, and so that will always be a staple of our business. And as we enter the renewable natural gas space, it's another vertical that really, where we can leverage our core competence around these gas treatment processes that in our proprietary decontamination technologies, particular oxygen removal and H2S removal. And so what we're doing there is we can partner with the EPC or whoever may be designing these entire gas processing systems that are, capturing and processing this gas before it's pipeline ready. And ultimately, when they're looking for oxygen solutions, when they're looking for H2S solutions, I mean, we can pretty well plug and play straight into what they're trying to put together as a whole. And so for us, it's just a great another vertical that is right in the middle of our wheelhouse, which is this purification of these gas streams, but also right down the fairway of our energy backgrounds as well. So it's been a very nice complementary vertical that we hope to grow in rapidly. But of course, we will still be spending a lot of our time focused on our oil and gas clients as we always have.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting to see the say diversification of energy sources be reflected in individual businesses, even relatively smaller businesses or more focused businesses, I should say. And I think we're seeing that really across the board, which is pretty exciting. And kind of moving from a mentality, we were talking the other day about how in Houston, usually when you say energy, you mean oil and gas, but really we need to be talking about all forms of energy and kind of seeing where can we apply what we know from one industry to the other and all the way across the board. Yeah. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I mean, you see it when you talk about, you look at some of the oil field services firms that are now starting to better understand, how they can apply to the geothermal application. There's a lot of shared techniques there. And similarly, for us, you can't really have these conversations without thinking about transition discussions a little bit. And, for us, you look at natural gas and it is an important fuel source for the future and one that we're going to have to continue to, maximize and do our best to not waste. And so, but then as you look at the different sources of those natural gases, it's very interesting to see how we can play beyond just, the typical, like you said, energy as we would think of in Houston, which is, your exploration and production and downstream refinement of these hydrocarbons. So yeah, a lot of movement and a lot of new things and a lot of new technologies out there.
I also just want to point out too, for context, that so many people are, I think, unfortunately misinformed about the idea that you could just turn off a switch and not have, have hydrocarbons from fossil fuels as part of the energy mix today, even in 10, 15 years, even more than that, right? So the 2050 scenarios from the International Energy Agency, including the Sustainable Development Scenario, do have a percentage of the energy mix still coming from oil and natural gas. And there's a lot of really cool research out there. I'm thinking right now specifically of Goldman Sachs's carbonomics work, showing that a lot of the pathway to net zero for the world is actually a movement away from coal to natural gas from and that's again carbonomics, so they're looking at the economics of everything too.
Yeah, and I think that I think a key theme that can't be overlooked as we continue to go down this path, whether it be elimination of coal, whether it be reduction in carbon and everything, and a lot of the different initiatives that are very, very important. What we can't overlook is the fact that there is still a huge amount of energy poverty. And, this access to reliable, affordable energy, that doesn't go away. And so, I think that, we have to just make sure we're cognizant of, there can be an all of the above strategy to make sure that we meet the goals of one, carbon reduction, but two, also ensuring that we continue to get people out of energy poverty. And so we wholeheartedly agree that natural gas is a very important fuel source moving forward. Hence our big move to make sure we're not wasting it.
Exactly. We shouldn't waste it. First of all, we shouldn't waste anything, period. Right. Waste is not a good thing in any context, but specifically, that idea that we need to have a low carbon oil field, right? So we're obviously in 2050, unless some other radical things change, particularly would be energy efficiency and reduced consumption. That would probably be the only things that could really move the needle that far, frankly. But if we're looking at that energy mix in 2050, we need to make sure that any hydrocarbons that are used in 2050 have been fully decarbonized from the operational standpoint. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of the oil and gas companies putting out scope 1 and 2 net zero targets, scope 1 and 2 being their operational emissions, so that at the very least, right, even if there's still some burning of fossil fuels, that the sourcing of those is fully decarbonized. And I think this technology that EcoVapor has is really an important part of that solution set, making sure that, at the point of production, that there is no waste, like you're saying, and that there's no flaring and venting, because that's where a lot of that, in the satellite pictures that come up, that folks think they've got it under control, but then they see the satellite, whoa, where's that one coming from, right?
Yep.
That's what EcoVapor can help with. And it's just so important for getting the world to net zero. So
we agree. And, you mentioned the satellites, and I spent some time in the monitoring space with Avitas, and so looking at some of these different monitoring and inspection techniques. And, I think one of the things that's important that you see going on in the industry right now is, first off, understanding, right? And so I think the more and more we're learning about this topic, the more and more we're learning about techniques that can actually make an impact. And so I agree with what you're saying, Kaitlyn. One of the most important things that we can do right now is, recognizing how important of an energy source we're sitting on, making sure that, the way we go about producing, refining, et cetera, is as efficient and carbon neutral as possible. And so, as we continue to find these techniques and we continue to learn more and more about what our actual emissions footprint is, I think you're only going to see better and better performance over time. So, technology availability is certainly increasing in this space. There's a lot of investment in this space, and there's a lot of rapid innovation in this space. And so we're just, we're proud to be a part of it and offer a solution. And, we're hopeful that more and more technologies like this can come around to make sure that we're, as an industry, doing the best we can.
So it kind of brings me to another question, Jason. I mean, why do you think every single oil and gas field is not yet equipped with EcoVapor equipment?
Yeah, right.
I don't get it.
I know. Well, look, it's
just kidding. Go ahead.
I know. But as we talked about earlier, there's a variety of reasons that might cause someone to be flaring or venting. And so, we would never sit here and tell you that we are a solution for every single application out there. We work hard with our customers to make sure we understand what their true pain point is, what their problem is, and then make sure we can have solutions that can help there. And so there are areas that we might not make sense. I mean, as an example, if there is no pipeline takeaway capacity, it's not going to make a lot of sense to deploy one of our units. So, but, and there's always the old cost factor that we always, everyone will always push back on. But, I think we're proud of the fact, like we said, that this is really an economic solution. I mean, if you think about our base unit, which we call the E300 for the oxygen removal when we're doing the tank vapor capture, so that stands for 300 MCF a day that can be processed through there. And so you imagine if you're moving 300 MCF a day, and let's use even a modest gas price in today's world of $3, and this is high BTU content gas, you can usually get a little bit of a premium or a kicker on that gas. So let's call it $4. I mean, you're talking, by that math, $1,200 a day. And, you do that per month, and, you can do the math there. And then, if the leasing of these units is, sub $5,000, then you can get a sense of the economics that a customer can have. Now, of course, the amount of vapor coming from these can vary. People's takeaway contracts can vary and everything else. But generally speaking, the economics are very, very good. And, even when taking into account whether, if we're out there and if a VRU is in service, or if there's a little bit of plumbing that needs to be done on the site. So as we've said, we're pleased that we have a strong value proposition from a cost perspective and from a profitability perspective for the client. And, and another thing that we've been working hard on is, we understand the production decline that everyone is up against. And so, what might start out as a 300 or 500 or a couple hundred MCF vapor stream could reduce to 100 or 50 MCF vapor stream. So we're also, we recently launched our E100, which is the 100 MCF unit. And we're also coming out with a smaller unit in addition to that early next year. And so this is also that we can help manage the life of the well production economically for the customer. So we want to have a life of well solution to where we can, one, maximize the environmental benefit, but also reduce their LOE costs over time so that, they don't have to have the inefficiency of having a unit ready to process, 1,200 or 300 MCF of gas per day when the reality is they're only putting 50 to 100 off. So, so we work hard to make sure that we can overcome any of those cost hurdles and that we can really put an economic damp on our product. So that, there's lots of objections that can be raised to a lot of different problems, but generally speaking, I think people can see that we've got a pretty good solution here. But once again, it's certainly not a one size fits all. But there's a huge population out there of opportunities for us, and we're just getting started.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Just go email Jason and fix your flaring problems. But links will be in the social and in the podcast description, of course. And so, yeah, I think it's just great to hear about these things. I mean, I think a lot of folks that don't know the industry well or just have a caricatured perception of it don't know that these things are going on. Like solutions like EcoVapor are being funded and developed and deployed. It's just one example of your company, right? But it's really exciting when you think about all of the change that can happen in the next several years, but definitely the next couple of decades. It's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. And I think it's, you're right. I mean, I think a lot of people have their standard, sound bites and clips that they can go to talk about our industry. But I think the reality is there are some of the brightest minds in the world working in this industry, coming up with innovative solutions. And it is a highly technical industry. And sometimes that gets overlooked a lot by those that speculate on the details of our industry. So yeah, we are certainly proud to be a part of it and proud to be providing a solution that helps us. And I'm glad to hear you say Pathways to Zero, because that's just our slogan, Pathway to Zero. We're proud to be one of those solutions on that path.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's so exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what y'all do in especially the next year or two. I feel like there's a lot of acceleration and we're really proud to be partnering with you through this. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. We're excited to partner with you and excited about everything you're going to bring to this as well. So yeah, I think the future is very bright for our company.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us, and if you want to install the E300 on your site, please reach out to Jason, and the links will be in the descriptions. Thanks everyone, and talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to ESG Decoded. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you consume yours, and follow ESG Decoded and Global Affairs Associates across social media platforms. Until our next episode, take what you learned today to drive long-term value for your organization by doing good for people and for the planet.